Now we can bring you today's top story. They're accused of deliberately driving viable small businesses into the ground in order to seize their assets on the cheap. The Chancellor had one word for it: outrageous. Yet this was no shady protection racket. This was the state-owned Royal Bank of Scotland. This programme has spoken to one business owner who actually recorded a phone call with the bank. "You've got 24 hours to give us the answers we need," they warned him, "or face bankruptcy." Our business correspondent Siobhan Kennedy reports.
RBS, a bank owned by the taxpayer with a public commitment to helping small businesses, today stands accused of doing the exact opposite. Not one but two damning reports have left what remained of its reputation in tatters.
Not only do today's reports reveal that publicly owned RBS isn't lending enough to Britain's small businesses, as this programme revealed a month ago, one also accuses a division of the bank called Global Restructuring Group of deliberately pushing distressed companies into bankruptcy.
This is exactly what Mark Edison says happened to him. He ran a successful small pharmacy chain near Manchester, but it ran into trouble after being sold a controversial financial product called an interest rate swap by his bank, RBS. The bank eventually moved him into its Global Restructuring Group to help him, though he claims it made things much worse.
Transferring into GRG meant that things got harder. From almost day one, they added charges to us. There was a basic £1,000 a month charge, management charge, with additional fees stuck on here and there whenever they had to do anything else. They increased the margin on our loan, which probably cost us about £2,000 a month extra. And they also assigned a turnaround company of accountants to, as they say, help us get through this. The initial costs on that were about £3,000 a month. So from being a business supposedly in trouble, they piled another £5,000 to £6,000 of charges on us from day one.
RBS's Global Restructuring Group now stands accused of deliberately sinking good companies to extract maximum value for the bank.
The evidence I have, we've looked at in detail, but now the story's broken. There's just so many more cases coming through. The cases we looked at, even if half of them weren't correct, they're still just disgusting what's happened to some of these. And people who've been ill and asked for time to restructure their business when their husband's dying, being put into administration straight away. It's just, the behaviour is just disgusting, and it needs sorting out.
And these are far from historic issues. Last week, Mark recorded a conference call between himself and the RBS unit, in which he was delivered an ultimatum: come up with a new cash flow plan or face bankruptcy.
We are going to take more advice before we go any further.
Mark, the fundamental question that is being asked of the directors of this company is, how are you going to pay the wages and your suppliers in the next 2 weeks? That is not something a solicitor can advise. You can ask him. By all means ask him. You can also ask your auditors. But that is the question that the bank needs answering. And we need it answering in the next 24 hours.
RBS maintains it's given considerable support to Mark and his business. 2 weeks ago, following an internal report which also criticised the RBS restructuring unit, I asked the bank's boss what he was going to do about it.
We're picking up all of the recommendations out of this report, which includes the review of GRG.
But those are serious allegations.
And that's a serious commitment to actually review all of those parts of that business.
But you say you've been talking to customers. Have you met any of those customers? What do you have to say to them?
We are picking up all of the recommendations here out of this report, and part of that is to review how we deal with those customers. It is distressing when you get into these situations. So we do need to actually be reviewing that as part of the report.
But the accusation is that RBS then comes along and makes it worse.
As I've said, we have picked up this report and we are going to be looking at all parts of this business and all the recommendations.
That's as may be, but today he flew in big city lawyers to investigate the claims, while Vince Cable, on a tour of the east of England, was so worried about the allegations, he's asked the regulator to launch another probe.
It is very worrying if indeed it is established that this practice is still going on. I mean, it would appear that certainly back in 2009 and afterwards, good companies were taken down because they weren't earning enough fees for the bank and seriously undermined.
So his key question, whether or not this type of behaviour is still happening today. As Mark's telephone call reveals, it was happening as recently as last week.